Hi, everyone. I'm Tish Conlin. Here's another episode of Tish Talk. Today, I have John Bush with me. John is a radical activist and entrepreneur who lives on a 10-acre international community farm or property in central Texas with two kids and his lovely fiance. Congratulations.
Mhm.
And business partner. He started questioning all these narratives and has done an incredible job of founding Live Free Academy, which we're going to talk about that. Homesteading, how to live off the grid, self-reliance, all these things, and building a parallel system in society that bypasses the corruption and the toxicity of the system we're currently living in. Welcome, John. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I've been following your work. It's just exceptional. So we're going to dive in. I have a lot of people, my audience, who are homesteaders or want to, maybe buy a small property, who maybe have some tools but want more. So let's just divide this into some of the areas that might be useful with some tips. So tell us how you got started with this journey. I mean, obviously that's the pressing question.
Okay, sure. Back in 2002, I caught a documentary about 9/11 by Alex Jones on cable access in Austin. He's not from Austin, but he lived in Austin and did a lot of work there. And it really just blew me away about, the level of treachery that this government is capable of. That led me down the rabbit hole, conspiracy research, New World Order type stuff. And I came to learn about libertarianism and the philosophy of liberty from Dr. Ron Paul during his presidential campaign, 2007, 2008. We did a lot of activism in the Central Texas area, trying to get him elected president. And of course, he wasn't elected president. That maybe would have changed the course of history had he been. But we then took our local movement and started a political action committee. We did all sorts of political activism. And we actually had some victories, what seemed like victories. We stopped police officers from being trained to do blood withdrawals. We had all sorts of reforms at the state level. We pushed back on this Big Brother fusion center system that shares information with the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security. But at the end of the day, it wasn't satisfactory for me because I came to realize that in reality, we weren't creating more freedom for ourselves. We were simply slowing the growth of tyranny. That's when I shifted my focus away from political activism and towards the creation of alternative institutions. So that includes growing your own food instead of relying on the grocery store, getting out of the city, building communities out in the country, using alternative currencies, gold, silver, barter, trade, cryptocurrency, getting off of big tech, getting encrypted communication channels, all that stuff, off-grid technology. So it's my belief that if we want to create freedom in our lives, we have to take responsibility for creating that freedom. And it's contingent upon us to work together with like-minded freedom lovers in order to build the systems, the infrastructure, the networks, the economies necessary so we can support one another now and well into the future.
Oh, I love it. I love everything about it. And I mean, this Live Free Academy, so you're actually offering practical training to people through your website. Is that the correct website? Maybe just tell the audience where they could find you to start.
Yeah, livefree.academy is the website. And from there, you'll be able to sign up for our daily newsletter. You'll be able to tap into our membership program. You are able to watch some of the free website webinars and summits that we've done. Like we did this Exit and Build Land Summit, and we had like 450 people in person, thousands watching online. And it was all about how to exit the cities, buy land, and build community in the country. Lots about homesteading, permaculture, how to make decisions as a group if you buy land cooperatively, what legal institutions to utilize, and all that stuff. It was a great success. And we're actually letting people watch for free if they'd like. They can go to exitandbuildlandsummit.com, exitandbuildlandsummit.com. It's also linked in the menu of our website, and they can register for free and watch the first 2 days absolutely for free. Excellent. But yeah, it's just really all about helping people to create freedom in their lives through strategies, tips, and tactics, and then bringing a community together so we can all support one another and work together on our common goals.
So you've like a couple of things, and I wanted to jump into this building a community. I have a couple questions there. with some of the resistance we've seen, and sort of whether you want to call it mass formation or what's happening, the indoctrination of a large group, and particularly younger people, millennials. I mean, it's sort of one of the groups. It's hard to shift their mindset. So I wanted to talk to you about that. But first, some of the things you mentioned for people who are listening, like you have really practical workshops. You were saying fermentation is coming up this weekend. You have something next week about, traveling around, and if you want to choose to live in an RV for a while or permanently, and how that can add value. So you have like really great practical workshops, which were excellent. But
Yeah.
I found this, I haven't been at this as long as you, maybe a couple of years. I mean, I woke up to the corruption in our food system long ago, and then in the big pharma system, but the entire system being so corrupt, and the dark agenda was only in the last few years. And like you, I've started off pushing back everywhere, also politically, and have had some small wins, but also working with a lot of the freedom cells and helping to teach people about how to take back their sovereignty, their health, and been running a detox clinic. But you see this incredible resistance to the message with a lot of people. What's your philosophy on, trying to wake people up, or do you not bother, or do you still plant seeds? Like, I try to be a good farmer, plant some good seeds as I go along. And if the soil's fertile, that could be the seed that really wakes them up. But what are you seeing in the US in terms of the polarity between left and right, or conservative and liberal, or between people who are kind of city folk or rural? And what do you do about it to try to help?
That's a great question. I actually came to realize after the Ron Paul campaign, seeing how many votes that he got, it was over 1 million, that there's already enough people that believe in liberty to where if we shifted our focus away from fighting the system, trying to wake people up, and we simply started working together to create systems of freedom, decentralized voluntary systems, that we could perhaps experience liberty in our lifetime. I do find value still in helping to recruit people. Oftentimes the government is the best player on our team. They just overstep their boundaries. They squeeze too hard, and every action has an equal and opposite reaction. But my advice for folks would be not to bang your head against the wall. And it's pretty clear when you're talking to family, friends, social circle, hanging out at a coffee shop or bar, at a party or whatever, you can strike up a conversation and very quickly see if people are open to being red pilled, right? Of course, red pill means like wake up, so to speak. But let's not lose sight of the fact that we're always constantly waking up, and it's not like we figured it all out and now we're all special and stuff. A lot of people kind of get a little arrogant ego thing in this world.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, I'm waking up every day. I learn something new.
There you go.
It's humbling in a way.
Yeah, but I think it's really easy to tell if somebody is not willing to entertain opposing viewpoints or depart from the status quo narrative. And so I would encourage people to just stop at that point. A lot of people in our community are very overwhelmed, understandably so, and they have this intensity about them, and they try to shove the red pill down somebody's throat. But if you remember where this reference came from, it's in the Matrix, and Morpheus gives Neo the choice of the red and the blue pill. So people have to choose to take that red pill. So we need to swell the ranks, but at the end of the day, my particular focus, and again, I used to be this like arrogant activist where it's like, everybody's got to do it the way that I think is the best way. But in reality, it's this huge movement spanning the globe, conservative, there's some MAGA peeps, there's some more liberal permaculture type folks and hippies and anarchists and tech people that reject tech. They like crypto, they hate crypto, and that's okay. It's just a giant movement, and everybody's doing their own part. But ultimately, at the end of the day, there's this awesome essay by Albert J. Nock. He's an early libertarian thinker, called Isaiah's Job. And he recounts the story in the Bible, the book of Isaiah. And it talks about the prophet Isaiah was tasked with spreading the gospel by the Lord. And he became very frustrated because he would go and talk to everyone about the gospel and they wouldn't hear the message. And so he prayed and he prayed to God, and he found that the Lord spoke to him and said, the right people will hear the message. You
Oh,
just keep putting
really?
the message out there, and those that are ready to receive the message will come to you. And the Bible identifies these people as the remnant. And he tells
Yes.
the prophet Isaiah that it's the remnant that are going to come together and pick up the pieces and rebuild society
Mhm.
after it all crashes and comes down. So
Oh, that's beautiful.
yeah.
What's the
Isaiah's job is
chapter?
the name of the essay, book of the
Yeah.
book of Isaiah. I'm not exactly sure exactly what chapter, but
Oh, I've
um,
read something like that, and it's a philosophy I have as well. I used to be
yeah,
at the beginning, I was really panicked because I saw the danger of the shots and was really, kind of, come on, everybody. But as I soften into this, I continue to do the work and plant the seeds, but I don't really get hung up on the outcome. That's
sure.
totally out of our hands. That's the freedom
Yeah.
choice. But that's beautiful. If I can find that passage, I'll add it. If you find it, send it over to me. But that is exactly what we need to keep doing. Keep planting the seeds, and it'll just organically spread. And it already is. Look at how huge this movement is internationally, and some of the successes pushing back against, for example, the caps on fertilizer. Looks like in Holland, they've just had the head guy resign with the farmer, tractor protests. So, I mean, that sort of, I think we're at a point where some political action is actually working as well as the rebuild. So pushing against the system still, and as well as building the new. So, kind of fast tracking the collapse of the old and building the new. And it's fascinating to see. It must be so exciting for you to see as well in your area with the growth of everything. I mean, it must be spectacularly growing your movement.
Yeah, we have over 750 Freedom Cell folks here in Central Texas, and that's just within our Freedom Cell community. There's all sorts of other people. My personal strategy is to avoid politics altogether. I don't vote. I haven't voted in a long time. I feel like I put in my work when it comes to politics and put a lot of time, energy, and resources, and it didn't make a bit of difference for me. But I understand that there is value in it here and there. But like I was sharing, I think that there's enough of the remnant already. If
Mhm.
we all just picked up our toys and went and played in a different sandbox and maybe built some protective barriers around that sandbox, I think that we could really find freedom. But it's all an evolution and a process. And a
Mhm.
lot of people, they don't think outside the box to realize that what if we don't need government at all in order to organize society, in order to have order, in order to have a functioning economy? And a lot of people just think that the only path is to reform government. But at the end of the day, it's the institution of government itself, also known as the state. This is an institution that enjoys a geographic monopoly on the initiation of violence. It's this institution that's the problem. It's this institution that makes it easy for bad people, bad actors to take power and use that power to affect everyone and to benefit
Mhm.
themselves. So I'm
Right.
like, we got to stay away from that. We need to build an alternative to that, because if we don't, if we simply reform and this guy and vote for that, then it's going to be this constant struggle that we're always having to deal with, putting our people in power. Then our people inevitably get corrupted too whenever they reach high
Well,
positions of power.
yeah, it's such an interesting point, and from my perspective, I've read so much on it too. But we have, not only in government, but really every major institution is so corrupt. The legal system, you've got the
Mhm.
education system, and I think if you just collapsed everything now, that maybe is the definition of the apocalypse, right? You collapse everything, rebuild. But in everything I've learned, the problem with the government, a lot of it, and the words they use to kind of brainwash and put a spell on us, is that good people really weren't interested, because, like, oh, politicians are all so dirty and slimy, and what's the point? I think if we shifted our mind to being actual public servants and serving the needs of people and having a small accountable government, just like every other area, I think that would make for a very, very good future. But I've thought about it a lot. I've read on it. I think we can't go without any government, even what I see here in Canada, the regulations are so horrific. They allow the lobbyists to do whatever they want. So having people who are accountable, who are honorable, who have integrity in each institution, I think is going to mean that most people just self-govern anyways, because they're just here to facilitate what people already know is right for them. So hopefully that will be a future that we will see in our lifetime. What do you think about the level of corruption and how quickly we can make a significant impact, and certainly the medical tyranny, if you're willing to comment, as a starting point, as well as the food corruption?
So yeah, we profess this exit and build strategy. And the idea is we ought to exit those systems that we find to be unethical, that we find to be corrupt, that we frankly find to be useless, that we don't even use, and build the alternative systems. Just the same, we ought to build the alternatives so we can exit the corrupt and centralized. So when it comes to the medical establishment, it's fundamentally critical that we really, really, really pay attention to our health, that we eat well, that we're conscious of what we put in our bodies. The old adage that you are what you eat couldn't be further from the truth. Well, it couldn't be further from the truth. No, it is close to the truth.
As you can get,
yeah. Wait a second. Exercise, stress plays a big role. That's why all these folks in our community, they like get all freaked out and they just go so deep down the rabbit hole that they get all anxious and stressed. That's not good for our body. That type of thing leads to disease. And then when it comes to pharmaceuticals, there's a lot of people that have just become dependent on these pharmaceuticals. So I would encourage folks to obviously be cautious. I would say talk to your doctor, but a lot of the medical doctors are corrupt and they don't even know better most of the time. It's just what they learned in medical school. It's these medical schools that are corrupted. And it's actually the Rockefeller Foundation that originally corrupted the medical schools, right? Flexner Report. So it's important to find a solid health coach, a naturopath, chiropractor, whatever, somebody, an expert in one of these fields, detoxing, whatever it may be, and help them guide you off of the pharmaceuticals, because I'm not going to say that there's never a place for them, but more often than not, through dietary changes and through lifestyle changes and through the use of natural remedies, people can decouple themselves from that pharmaceutical industrial complex altogether.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's what I'm all about here, and I've seen the benefit even with my Rife machine now. I mean, we're learning about all these modalities of healing. Yesterday, I watched a documentary on earthing, and even that, we've become so disconnected from Earth that we put on plastic synthetic shoes, and people have actually had these incredible healings occur when they just put their feet on the earth for prolonged periods. I mean, we really have no idea of the impact of our connection with Earth and all the microbes and even the ions. So it's actually, we're on the cusp, I think, of seeing incredible healing capabilities, because they have, as we both know, been repressed. And some of these healing technologies like Rife technology, sound healing, frequency healing, music healing, have literally been put and slandered to the point where no one believes they work. But once people wake up to the fact that they can actually heal probably sometimes much better. And again, I do support an integrated system for medical in future, because I think there are some good drugs out there, practical. I can look at ivermectin. So I support that integrated system. I think I've come to the conclusion, I do believe there are some good aspects in that we could integrate in a lot of areas, but mostly, exiting the corruption is critical. And so where do you see your organization going? Are you hoping to grow internationally, or do you have any cells here in Canada or other countries?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So the Freedom Cell Network, if folks aren't familiar, it is a decentralized network of freedom-loving people that are very much focused on solutions, that have adopted this exit and build strategy. And so it started off as an idea back in 2014, 2015, and it's since turned into a global network. We have over 33,000 participants. We're represented on every single continent except for Antarctica. And
Wow.
yeah, and there's most definitely some solid representation in Canada. There's a giant Telegram group, for example, that has over 1,000 people, and then it goes from the Canada main group to all sorts of the provinces and local areas as well. So we're
Oh,
really
wow.
adamant about solutions. In fact, it's one of our
Yeah.
key principles. We have a website, freedomcells.org, freedomcells.org, like cells in the body. People can go register absolutely for free. They
Oh,
can add their skills, the role, if they're willing to meet up in person, which is really what we encourage. And
yes.
from there, they can find events and meetups or host a meetup and get tapped into the network. And like I said, it's just about bringing people together that
Oh,
recognize there's a problem, but more importantly, that are oriented towards figuring out how to navigate around it. How can we build a better life for ourselves, and how can we work together on common goals?
oh, I love it. I'm gonna check that out as well, because that's what I'm all about. I mean, once you recognize the problem, get off your butt and let's start fixing it, right? And
Yep, for
and
sure.
it actually, I've said to a lot of people, it actually can be quite fun. I mean, you have to see the problem to be able to fix it. So that's an important part, speaking the truth about what's wrong. And then you can get right into what's right. I mean, I just watched a video on how to make your own bread starter, and you spend 20 minutes with it. The stuff is all over the place, but that's just one little skill that you can learn, and then you can save it for an entire year and make the most delicious bread. I mean, these little skills, they help you gain confidence. You must have seen the shift in people from, initially. I mean, I don't know if you have any stories of people who came in and how they've like progressed and how they've built their confidence with being part of your group.
Sure. Yeah, I think you brought up an important point. Having little victories builds
Yeah.
momentum, because a lot of people, like we talked about earlier, they get really overwhelmed. They read this
Mhm.
research or watch this documentary, and they feel like they are facing an impossible task. But if you get the garden started, you host the first meetup, or you go to a meetup and find that there's other people that believe what you believe, and they're out there and they're doing work to make the world better, you start to build some confidence and some momentum. But one story comes to mind. I was at an event called the Porcupine Freedom Festival.
Oh,
This is in New Hampshire, which is close up there to Canada. And
yeah.
it's all about the Free State Project, which is this effort to create a free state in New Hampshire. They actually have like 4,000 people that have moved
Really?
to New Hampshire to reform the government and to build all these connections and
Great.
networks. But I was walking around and this guy came and grabbed me. He's like, "Hey, you're John Bush. You started the Freedom Cell Network. I want to introduce you to our crew." And he proceeded to introduce me to 10 people. They're all parents. And during COVID, the lockdowns, they felt isolated, afraid, but they
Mhm.
found the Freedom Cell Network and they all got together. They started meeting regularly. And turns out they all pulled their kids out of government school. And now they have a little homeschool co-op that they do
Oh,
together. So that's the
cool.
kind of stuff that's really fulfilling to hear. And it's a perfect use case for the Freedom Cell Network. Find people that are in
Mhm.
your area, and then you get together, you grow gardens, maybe buy land together, you pull the kids out of school, or you get the kids together to build relationships. And
Mhm.
basically, it's like a support network of doers.
Oh, yeah, that's what this has exactly been my focus after last year spent really kind of educating and then doing the election, running in the election. I've shifted. We have these amazing groups that get together. And one of the important things I found, because there's a lot of dark things happening, and you have to grieve certain things and realize how bad it is, but also we're doing fun things, like we're playing, we're got euchre clubs, and I had a trivia night, and that type of
Cool.
thing is so important. It
Uh-huh.
alleviates the stress, gets you
Yeah.
out of that like fight or flight response, because they are doing that deliberately with all the fear porn. It lightens you up, and it's very healing, just to laugh and play and have just a regular life too.
Heck
So
yeah.
that's a
Yeah, we
big
got to build those bonds and be able to relate to one another and just have fun. A lot of people take themselves too damn seriously, and then
yeah.
they get all irritable and agitated and anxious. And the thing that I've come to find is that the way that you behave, the energy that you put out into the world, that's who you attract back towards you. We get
Hmm.
caught in this little vicious cycle where if you're all negative and fear and angry, then you're going to bring more angry people and negative people into your life. And really what we're trying to do is we're trying to like elevate human consciousness to be able to
Yes.
see, like, so we can't get played anymore because we see through their disguise. But
Hmm.
more importantly, we need to become the best versions of ourselves, because if we are going to pick up the pieces and rebuild society, we want to make sure that we simply don't recreate the problems that we've experienced in the past. And unfortunately, we live in a trauma-based society. People don't know how to heal. They don't know how to deal with issues from their past. So we got to
Hmm.
be the best people that we can be. And a big part of that is just getting together and having fun and laughing and
Hmm.
building that bond and that brotherhood and sisterhood.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And that's something I work on, just processing anything negative comes very quickly so I can raise my frequency, get back to high production, high energy, connection, compassion, and love everywhere. And I think that's a great formula for what's happening with a lot of the people who are going in this with their ego, or they got a lot of anger, or they're not realizing their own traumas, and so they put that on the groups that they're going in, even within the freedom cells. And we can collectively work to help each other to be our best self. So yeah, so we're not going to get duped in the future, and we have the strength and resolve, but not in a kind of an angry way.
Yep.
The word controlled opposition, I've heard it so much now, because with all the negative information and the evil information that we learn, it's hard to trust, right? A lot of people are facing a crisis of trust, which is something I talk about when I speak to
Hmm.
people, because when you realize how untrustworthy all these institutions are, you naturally start mistrusting almost everyone around you. So that's something we have to guard against. And the anecdote is building these long, trusting relationships, taking, make sure that you're a person of your word, that that you're really focusing on your own behavior and actions. And if you do go out of line, which we're only human, stress got you one day, just apologize, right? We have to accept that we're all human, and that's a good thing. What do you think about that, in terms of how we can deal with some of the tension around this struggle?
Uh, yeah, for one thing, there's a lot of people. I appreciate that you identified that people have trust issues because they were lied to by the government, and perhaps they were raised to respect certain institutions, the doctor, the medical establishment, the government, the experts, so to speak. And then when you discover that you've been lied to, you start to see boogeymen, and you start to have distrust for everyone, even people within our own community. So I honestly get a little bit annoyed by the whole pointing the finger, controlled opposition. Everybody thinks
Mhm.
everybody's controlled opposition. It's like, how do you have so much time to just bicker and point the finger at everybody? Like, most people are just good people trying to do good work. That's not to say that it's not out there, but at the end of the day, we just need to build our own circles of trust, really. And the
Mhm.
only way to know if someone's a good, authentic human being is to get out there and work with them, to build with them, to do events and stuff with them. But another thing that you said, I think it's important for us to be forgiving of ourselves. I used to
Mhm.
get caught in this trap. I focus a lot on self-development, and I was in a marriage. I have two kids, and the marriage completely fell apart, and it was very, very difficult. And the pain and the struggle spilt over onto my kids. It was just a terrible chapter
Oh,
in my life.
sorry to
However,
hear.
I learned a lot, and it was like, it was
Mhm.
the manure that I needed in order to blossom into a beautiful flower, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it's
And I learned a lot, and
beautiful.
I have a very nice, healthy relationship with my
Oh,
fiance. We're going to be getting
awesome.
married in November, and me and the
Okay,
kids are tight. And it's
congratulations.
just all about learning to be the best version of yourself. And one of the
Mhm.
biggest differences was when I used to slip up and like lose my temper and yell at the kids, I would then go into this period of sorrow where I'd like beat myself up. And it's like, oh
Mhm.
my God, you're such a fool, you're such a bad dad. And then that would manifest itself in more struggle and more of the negativity. But when I really learned to like be gentle with myself and forgive myself and understand that I'm only human and I'm going through a lot, and it's a crazy world we're living in, and I never learned to deal with this kind of stuff. I never learned to sit with my emotions or to let my emotions flow out, just sort of bottle them up like so many men do. That made a big difference for my growth, just being forgiving for yourself. And then when you can
Awesome.
forgive yourself, it makes it easier to be compassionate and to forgive other people. So yeah,
Yeah.
everybody's got a lot of healing to do, and really I think people should spend more time focused on healing themselves,
Yeah.
finding that inner freedom, fighting that inner
Yeah.
tyrant,
Yeah.
before we go out and fight all these people in the government and stuff. We got to get right with ourselves.
Absolutely. That's been a big focus of mine, as well as I've got two boys who are so precious to me. So making sure I keep my eyes on the prize, but and really healing relationships too. This great divide happened really severely in Canada because we're far more liberal, left leaning, and the media is so corrupt. They have one narrative only. So me going against the narrative caused a lot of friction,
Yeah.
unfortunately, a lot of heartache and pain and broken relationships. And I'm happy that with consistent efforts, I'm healing a large number of them, which has been
Good.
really heartening. And even if I don't change their point of view, the relationship and love is still there. So I think that's an example for other people too. You don't have to, end all relationships. There is sometimes an opportunity for healing. That can be very stressful and painful too when you've just like ended a relationship. But if you know how to talk to someone with love, even if you end up disagreeing. I know that happened with my one sister, and we're as close as ever now because we've gone back to what is important is our love for each other.
Good.
So, yeah. So I wanted to ask you something as well about community, because you've mentioned this a few times, and the importance of, not going it alone and why we need community. There are people in my life who didn't like that I was outspoken, didn't like that I was taking a leadership role, and opted to just hide and go it alone. Can you speak to those people who, just go it alone, or why it's important to have a community at all? Or do you have any thoughts on that when it comes to this moving towards, an improved world and building something better in the future?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, humans by nature are a social animal. We are one of the very, very few animals that communicates verbally, right?
Hmm.
Uh, and in a very sophisticated way, we've developed language. So it's in our nature to communicate, to share ideas, to be with other people. And I think, I don't know, a lot of it stems in people's childhoods, I guess, when they have struggle with their family or their parents don't give them the love and affection that we need to develop into a healthy human being, a healthy adult. And so I would just encourage folks that are struggling, because I don't know, I would imagine if somebody isolates themselves, then they have some issues going on emotionally and socially. So I would just encourage people to be real conscious of that and just try to do the work. And
Hmm.
especially with men, like there's this pride, but go see a therapist if it helps. Or like one of the things with the Freedom Cell community that we talk about is like you get together with your small group,
Hmm.
approximately 8 people. We choose the number 8 because 8 people is the best number for maximum creativity. There's
Oh, I love
scientific
that.
studies that
Yeah.
show that. Yeah.
Oh,
And then
cool.
you link up with other groups of 8 and you form a larger group. And then a larger group links up with the other large groups. That's
Yeah.
basically how the network structure
we
works. But
we
we
do
encourage
that.
people to use the network for whatever it is that you're into or you need. So
Hmm.
the first stuff we talk to people about doing is like preparedness stuff, growing a garden, having food storage. But if there's a group of people that want to get together and have like a spiritual group, if they
Hmm.
want to study the Bible, or if they want to pray together, or if they're more into meditation or other spiritual practices, they can come together and form a group and talk that kind of stuff out, right? So
Nice.
community is fundamental. Like we're
Yes.
going through crazy times, and unfortunately, I believe it's only going to get worse before it gets better. So
Me
as
too.
we enter a period of immense darkness, people are going to wish that they're going to need a tight-knit community of people that can support one another. So
Yes.
let it also be a lesson for the folks that are a little more aware emotionally, spiritually, and consciously that we ought to have compassion for those that aren't. But there's a boundary, of course, because when there's somebody that's just so toxic and it's clear they're not interested in helping themselves in the least bit, they are the types of folks that quickly can bring the health of a group, of a community down. So
Mhm.
the first instinct should be, how can I help this person? How can we help them to help themselves? Because just like the red pill of waking up, there's a red
Mhm.
pill of wanting to do the work as well. And unfortunately, a lot of
Yes.
people just don't want to do the work. but a lot of people
Right.
don't know how. So let us try to
Yes.
help them. But then if we make an attempt to help them, to help themselves, to talk it out, to provide resources and modalities, internal healing modalities, spiritual healing modalities, and they're still not willing to get
Mm-hmm.
that help, then it's perfectly okay for folks to set healthy boundaries because, like I
Yes.
said, toxic people will quickly torpedo a group way faster
Mhm.
than the FBI or the government will torpedo a group. Usually it's just
Yeah.
toxic people that cause most of the problems.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. There's a fine line because we all have, we all have needs and everyone has a bad day, but there's that awareness of issues and willingness to work on them that are two key emotional factors. When it comes to like things like there's the law of reciprocity, some people say, well, I'm so concerned about food. They get so panicked. They're hoarding, right? And, everyone now in the freedom movement has extra supplies. But can you comment on, this whole spirit of generosity as humans? I always found it's kind of like the more you give, the more you get. It keeps creating almost like this incredible lie about scarcity. And we know it's a lie. It's a design scarcity because when you look at any plant, when you garden, look at one bean and all the seeds you get, one tomato and all the seeds you get. We were designed for abundance. So any comments on encouraging people to generously give, whether they can give of their time, of their expertise, even if you have a portion set aside to help with other people less fortunate in your community. Can you comment on, just that whole concept of how we can help each other and be generous?
Sure. I appreciate what you said about abundance. Yeah, you have tomato and all sorts of vegetables just crank out so many seeds.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
actually a movement, what was it called? Save Our Food. And they did this big social media push and this big promotional campaign to show people, like everyone's talking about food scarcity and supply chain shortages. Let's show videos and pictures of all the abundant farms and permaculture food forests and the farmers market and all the trade and stuff. Like we recently did a meat share where we brought together 16 people. We all chipped in. We bought a cow and it got slaughtered. And like we distributed it from my house. We had a chest freezer and I did a
Nice.
video and took pictures. You open up the chest freezer, it's stuffed full with beef. And so everybody's freaking out
Great.
about meat shortage, food shortage, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, not for us, because we're taking responsibility for that. But I will say it's critical that we take care of ourselves first.
And our families. Yes.
And our family, yeah, because if you're struggling financially, if you're struggling spiritually, then it's going to be a lot harder to help other people. It's just like when you're on a plane, you're encouraged, the parent is encouraged to put the mask on before the kid, because if the parent passes out, then they're not going to even be there to help the kid at all.
Absolutely.
So, but I do strongly believe that the more you give, the more you receive. And I try to give back as much as possible with my time, energy. We always have like a free component of most of the work we do with Live Free Academy for folks that are struggling. We just did a homesteading on a budget workshop. The website's livefree.academy/budget, livefree.academy/budget. And it was oriented towards what can you do if you're on a tight budget. You can still grow your own food. You can still prepare. There's even creative ways to get land. But yeah,
Really? Oh,
yeah. So we all ought to be helping one another and supporting one another, but let's make sure that that we're in a good spot first.
yes, that is absolutely. You got to work on always self first. And it's so funny this analogy of the mask on the plane has come up in a number of my podcasts. So it's such a critical point. Taking responsibility for your own self and your life, your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, your choices, and everything. Once you start doing that and being aware of them, and aware of how you're programmed too, like everything they've done for how long has been programming us. So deprogram yourself first, and then you can help others and keep your bucket full, keep your whole life balance and health full. Can you give anyone, just sort of to end off today, this has been amazing, a couple of maybe practical tips on weathering this next storm? Like, I think we're going to have a real storm too for at least the next 6 months until the next growing season. And, maybe even some of the best things to store or anything that you can comment on that might give them a practical takeaway, and then just reinforce where they can find you again.
Okay. So one thing that we teach at Live Free Academy is what I call the Live Free Academy empowerment philosophy. And
Mhm.
so it's a 4-part framework that people can utilize in order to find more success, in order to more effectively live a better life, whatever that may look like for each person. And so the 4 pieces, again, this can be applied to starting a freedom group, to making
Mhm.
more money, to starting a business, to healing a broken relationship with a family member, to growing your own food, to becoming more prepped, to buying land, whatever. So there's 4 pieces. The first piece is mindset. And
Mhm.
that's first, the mindset. So
Yes.
let us believe in ourselves. Let us believe in our ability to get things done. Let's focus more on that which we want out of life and in life, and less on that which we don't want, right? So everybody
Mhm.
always learns about this new world order and then just focus and obsess over it. And if you're just watching freedom or truth documentaries and like all about this crazy medical pharma fascism stuff all day, then you're going to see more and more tyranny. You're going to experience tyranny and control in your life. But if
Oh,
you're
yeah,
out there
I just
garden,
yeah, I just wanted to add, sorry, because this is it's such a fascinating point about the power of belief, and I talk about this as well. And there's a book, I don't know if you know it, written like 1930s, The Power of Believing. I mean, the incredible miracles that happen when you program your mind for success. You literally
yeah,
visualize, you think it, you get to the point where you can have the heart mind connection around whatever you're believing in. Like if you don't believe you're going to succeed, you won't. But if you
mhm,
can feel the powerful emotions of success, or how you're going to feel when you walk down the aisle and you're getting married, if you want to get
uh-huh.
married, those things, they actually rewrite things. It's incredible, these mind movies. And I know Joe Dispenza talks about that as well. So I just want to throw that in. But
Oh,
I,
sure,
I
yeah.
totally love what you're saying.
Yeah, it's critical. It's a fundamental piece. A good old Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich did the same thing.
Yes. Yeah. That's a
Here's my,
good one. A
come here,
classic.
here's my lovely fiance. This is Rebecca.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
amazing.
Hi. Hi. Nice to meet you. Yeah. Wow. Well, congratulations on your upcoming marriage. Beautiful.
There come the dogs. All right, the dogs are barking now.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Yes. Okay. Let's
okay,
keep
4
going. So that
pieces.
was, yeah, that's
Yeah,
one.
so mindset, it's critical. And a
Yeah.
lot of people struggle with the mindset piece,
Oh,
and they're constantly living in
absolutely.
fear, and they're overwhelmed, and they only manifest more of that which they're resisting, right? That which you resist persists. So
Yes.
shift the focus. Another part of the mindset is to begin with the end in mind, to
Mhm.
visualize where it is you want to go, right? And that leads me to the
Yeah.
next piece of the empowerment philosophy, which is strategy. So have a
Mhm.
plan, come up with goals. When I think of strategy, I think of how to get from here to there. So the
Yes.
challenge is a lot of people don't have a destination. They don't have a goal. Like me,
Mhm.
we set out to buy this. Me and Rebecca, when we got together, we knew that we wanted to own land and build an intentional community. So fast forward 4 years, it took us 4 years.
Awesome.
But we got a 10-acre homestead, and now we have 2
Oh,
community members that live there and that help immensely and are incredible influences on the
beautiful.
kids and stuff. So you got to have a plan. And when you don't have a plan, you don't have a destination, it's easier to get pulled and pushed different
Mhm.
places because you're constantly reacting to the enemies
Yeah.
of freedom. But if you got a plan, you can be like a horse with blinders, and you're like, I'm totally focused on my goals. Even if
Mhm.
this happens over here, I may have to shift my plan. I may have to shift my
Right.
goals a little bit, but I got my eye on the prize, and I'm not going to get distracted by snake venom in the vaccine or graphene oxide or whatever it may be. Like I'm just going
Yeah.
forward and achieving my goals, right? So
Perfect.
have a
Love it.
strategy is the next piece. The third piece is to work together with other people, to
Mhm.
build a team, to find people that have the same values as you and that are aligned with your vision and aligned with your goals, and come together to help one another fulfill our goals. And the fourth piece is to take massive action. If we want
Mhm.
to turn this tide around, if we want to prevent a world of technocracy and control and social credit scores and central bank digital currencies, we're going to have to work really, really hard right
Mhm.
now. And in order to
Yeah.
take massive action, sometimes you got to pull back on so much Netflix. Sometimes you got to
Yeah.
stay at the house, work on the garden instead of going to happy hour with the friends, right? So the
Absolutely.
final piece
That's
is massive action.
Oh, I love it. And that reminds me of Tony Robbins. I know he talks about massive action as well. and he's done a lot of good work. I love everything you're saying, and I mean, I'm really impressed. You guys have done so much work, and it has been with some sweat, right? It's like a lot of people look at someone like you and say, oh, well, you know, you just fast tracked to success, but I'm sure you had a huge number of obstacles along the way, and still face them. They never go away, right? There's always obstacles to overcome, and that's actually part of the fun. So, anyways, I know we've maybe run out of time, and you looks like you've just had an internet outage. So we will end there. It's been amazing having you on the show, and all the best. And I'm actually going to check out some of this stuff for myself, and I'll post your website for the audience. So thanks so much, John. Been a pleasure. Anything else you wanted to say? Oh, you've lost your
Froze there
audio.
for a sec, but I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. So I was just about to just like sign off for you. But do you want to say anything to just reinforce before you leave for people
Oh, sure.
where they can find you? Just one more time.
Yeah. Just everybody just stay positive and focus on what you want in life. Let's get to building, because we got our work cut out for us, but there's no reason why we can't turn this ship around and create a better world for future generations to enjoy. But I strongly encourage folks to check us out at livefree.academy. livefree.academy. You can sign up for our daily email newsletter there on the homepage, and then you can click on the events tab or go to livefree.academy/events and see the upcoming workshops and stuff we have. And then definitely check us out at the Greater Reset, thegreaterreset.org. It'll be the 4th iteration. People can join us live in person in Texas or in Mexico. Wow. And it's going to be free for anyone to watch online. 5 days of transformational, solutions-oriented talks on how we can create a greater reset. And instead of having more tyranny and control and technocracy, we'll use decentralized technology to our advantage. We will create voluntary institutions, decentralized institutions. People really just support one another through this transition to a better world.
Oh, I love it. And I'd love to help you definitely on the health and detox side. So I'll touch base with you on that. So anyways, thanks so much. Talk to you again soon. All the best.
Thank you.
Bye.